Today, a growing number of Americans are concerned about the Constitution, justice in the courts, the system back on track, and institutions to their proper place. None of these systems will work, however, until America finds out how the Illuminati carries out its program on undetectable total mind control. As long as they remain free to implement this program on individuals in total secrecy, they can act with impunity. So says Fritz Springmeier, our guest speaker for this evening, and a man who has dedicated his life to exposing the Illuminati and to bringing forth solutions to thwart their power and control. Mr. Springmeier has written 6 books, co-authoring 3 of them with a former member he helped to free from that secret organization. Tonight he'll define who and what the Illuminati is, their bloodlines and rituals, and how they were instrumental in starting many of our religious, intelligence organizations, some of which they still control today from behind the scenes. This is sure to be a most interesting program. Now please join me in a nice warm welcome for Mr. Fritz Springmeier.
Thank you, Anne. I want to express a word of appreciation to the Granada Forum, Ralph and Anne and Dennis for their hard work, giving me the privilege to be here and speak to this great crowd. I am, preaching to the because you're, as I've gotten out there and talked with various members of the audience, a lot of you are very informed. Although some of you, this is the first time that you've been here to the Granada Forum. I'm in an extremely difficult position as your speaker tonight because I was told that I would start speaking at 7:30, and in order to give you an organized presentation, I try to tailor a vast amount of information into a short period of time. And so tonight, going through a lot of information, and I'm going to be freewheeling it. This is not a prepared speech, and I am not a great speaker, but I am trusting that if my heart can connect with your heart, that the truth of what I have to say will make this a good talk. I'm not Bill Clinton in my speaking abilities, but the things that I have to share with you are extremely important to you and your children and your children's future. In fact, I wish that we had a whole stadium of people to hear this kind of information. When I was coming down here to speak to you, I visited and she said that she made the comment that the Christian people are so hard to talk to because they're so set in their thinking patterns. Why that's so? And I said, people that go to these established denominations are handed prepackaged truths. And these denominations want them to be the type of thinking where they will accept prepackaged truth. Teaching you to take responsibility for yourself and to investigate and look below the surface and don't allow people to spoon feed you what information. But one of the reasons why it will be difficult to address some of you is because of you've been conditioned to accept prepackaged truths. Also, I get a lot of comments from friends when they hear that I'm going to speak, "Oh, good luck, the American people are so stupid." Well, that probably doesn't apply to this crowd, but my response to that is that the American people aren't stupid. They've had slides built into their thinking. The word slides is a CIA term. It means to build in a way of thinking that dead ends you. and there's a lot of slides that have been built into our thinking, and I will bump into those audience because there are a number of groups out there that have the appearance of opposing the New World Order, which are building in slides into people's thinking, and when I bump into those, at first I think that I have somebody who's on the same wavelength as I, and then I hit one of those slides and I lose them. So if I hit a slide and it's hard for you to sit in your chair, you want to walk on out of here, put that issue up on the shelf and continue listening to me. An example of a slide would be that we need to go to an approved establishment authority for particular information. For instance, and I have this is showing the Illuminati control of healthcare. Each one of you have lived in your body for many years. I've lived in this body for 42 years, and if I go to a doctor, my opinion as to what's wrong with this body carries very little weight, and yet that doctor, in 5 minutes of a cursory glance over my body, is in the position to make pronouncements about it. This is the type of slide that I'm talking about. Now, I'm trying to think on my feet here how I want to start in with this. Some of the people in the audience indicated they were very interested in history, and this is something that last night I showed. What we're dealing with, over centuries, we've had one lie layered in over another lie. Just this string of lies. And so it's really difficult for yourself to come in and unravel those lies, and now I have like an hour and a half to do this. An hour and a half when your frame of reference has been built by the world system over many years. Who built your frame of reference? See, this is the problem that I discovered, was that when I've gone to present information to people, it's not a matter of having facts, because I have file cabinets full of facts, and I have all kinds of and a lot of personal experiences to validate some of the things that I report. It's not a matter of not having the proof. The problem is one of communication. It's like going to Africa and trying to explain something in America that the people over there have no concept of. There isn't reference for people to hang what I'm giving. For instance, when I came out with a book, The Watchtower and the Masons, in 1990, where I reported that Charles Taze Russell, who started the Watchtower Society, was a Freemason, I was told that the book didn't have any significance because the Freemasons were only a group of old men that sit around and play cards. This is the situation that I face. I can tell you things, and very frequently I've come to audiences and I have given them inside information that I've risked my life to get, that I've gone through hell to get. They look at this strange thing, you know, it's like handing somebody a 10 million yen note, and they look at a piece of paper and then walk off and leave it. And so I need to, as I go through this, I need to establish some things. And yet, on the other hand, I don't want to just speak to your minds. I also want to speak to your hearts. Because if I don't reach your heart as to the core of what's going on, then I'll have accomplished nothing. And I've realized that over the last 8 years of going out in groups is because I'm very analytical, I had an easy time reaching people's minds, and it was very easy for me to approach talking to people that way. And to give an example of how important it is to reach people's minds, back in 1982, a friend of mine came to me and he said, "Fritz, I know you're a researcher. I need to know about Somalia and what are legitimate groups doing relief over there. Would you research it and report back to me?" When I started researching Somalia, I read one personal anecdote after another of the tragedy of the people's lives over there, and it hit me. I had had knowledge of the situation before I started researching it again. It that I cried for a day, and so I gave my friend my findings and told him how it had touched me. And then I sat in his church as he reported back to his church. And as I was sitting there in the pew, I saw that what had become heart knowledge to me had translated back into head knowledge, so that there was somebody in one of the pews mumbling, "Oh, I ain't going to help them commies." And see, it wasn't communism. It was about people that had gone through years of deprivation and starvation and were dying of starvation. They could care less about the United States or Russia. One of the actors in Amistad, a black actor, when he put on the leg irons and the collar, it was when it really hit as to what slavery was all about. So I need to impact you at the heart level. You can imagine what it would be like if you were a 2-year-old child and you were taken by these big adults, stripped naked, and you were cold, and for a good period of time they ridiculed and were abusive to you, and you into a cage, you down into a cold well, and then you would be then you are left there in that cold well in the dark for several days, and without water, and every so often the top of the well is pulled off and you're given some more abusive language, and you have human excrement and urine dumped down on you. This is a standard trauma that programming. We're going to be discussing the mind control tonight, but I also want to discuss with you who and what is the Illuminati. And I want to give a little bit of insight as to you can see this in history. The history books are being written by the establishment, and they're very selective in what they report. But those of us who are history buffs that are extremely fascinated with going back, reading primary documents, and that's what I did as a child. While my peers were out getting drunk and partying, I was reading primary history documents. But I kept it a secret for years because it would be considered very strange if I told anyone how I spent my time. Here's something that's and that's what I want to talk about with you to start with, is that when you go back and you do this research, nitty-gritty research, you start coming across anomaly after anomaly. Things don't add up. They don't fit. A person who doesn't have a frame of reference to know what to do with these anomalies just discards them because you don't have any way to file it into your mind. But once you understand what's going on, you'll see evidence around you. For instance, on the mind control, I think practically everybody who's now read Cisco and my books on the mind control has are now in a position to report back to me and say, Fritz, I saw this, this, and this, and this. Person's under mind control, and look at this. And almost every day I'm getting these kind of excited reports back from people as they're beginning to see that this stuff is all around them, and they had been interpreting the events around them in the light of their own. And now that they have improved their frame of reference, now they can take these clues and they can actually make a proper judgment call as to what's going on around them. And many people have been very excited to me that I have made sense of their life. Some people have gone through for 50 years to understand the woman with, or what happened to their family, and the information that I've provided has removed the enigmas about their life and given them a great relief. World War II was considered a great crusade against Nazism, and that's one reason why I like to pick a novel of that time period, because basically that was a very great war, and we had a clear-cut enemy. We had the evils of Hitler and Nazism. This is from the Code of Federal Regulations. On December 13th, 1941, just a few days after Pearl Harbor, FDR made a presidential decree which is listed in that code, and here it's indexed here, General License under Section 3A of the Trading with the Enemy Act, and it's written out here. What this license allows is if the Secretary of the Treasurer, Morgenthau, wanted to, he could give a special license to certain people so that they trade with the enemy. You will find when you go back in history to World War II that the Illuminati kingpins were above World War II. J.D. Rockefeller had his oil unloading oil and gas in Spain, and then that oil and gas was shipped into Germany, Hitler's armies running. And it is said that if that oil and gas that was coming into Spain for Nazi Germany had not been available to Hitler, the war would have come to an end in 19. A lot of you are probably already familiar that De Beers has a monopoly over diamonds. When the United States declared war against Japan, the U.S. government realized that they had an immediate need for over 6 million carats. Diamonds are used in industry for a variety of purposes, for instance, industrial cutting. They're also used in a lot of things like radioscopes. And so the U.S. government 6 million carats of diamonds immediately from De Beers. Now De Beers has artificially of diamonds up by making us believe that there's a shortage of diamonds. If people realized that there was actually a glut of diamonds, the price would be very low. And so De Beers was not very excited. De Beers, by the way, is tied in with the Illuminati and the Rothschilds. Some families are tied in with this. And it's headquartered in London. De Beers was not very excited about being told what to do, especially turning a large quantity of diamonds when they're trying to make people a shortage of diamonds. He out and out refused the U.S. government. U.S. government then notified Great Britain that De Beers did not provide diamonds. The U.S. government was going to cut off all supplies, and they would allow the United Kingdom to fall. And their threat was all military and all foodstuffs, and all was as strong a threat as they could make. De Beers grudgingly gave 1 million carats to the United States. Well, what's interesting is that Hitler had the same needs as we had for diamonds in his submarines and in his airplanes too. And remember that De Beers, which is based in London, has a monopoly over diamonds. Now, how did Hitler get all of his millions of carats to run his war machinery? He got, and it was very obvious to the casual observer of the situation that he had to be getting his diamonds from De Beers. The British government and the American government never stopped providing Hitler with these diamonds to keep his war machinery going. Another example of how the Illuminati kingpins are above the wars that they create for us is Aristotle and Onassis. In World War II, essentially all of the Greek merchant ships during the course of the war, a lot of them in the Mediterranean, which was a very hot theater. However, although approximately 400 Greek merchant ships were all sunk, Onassis, who had a large fleet, I don't remember the exact number, over 200 ships, his fleet sailed in every theater of the war. They traded with all of the nations. They went to Nazi Germany and to the United Kingdom and everywhere else. There was not one of Aristotle Onassis' ships that was ever attacked, not even strafed. And all of his ships came through the war completely unscathed. Now, only collaboration at the highest levels could have allowed Aristotle Onassis' ships to have sailed anywhere with impunity. These are the anomalies, and I could go through war after war and pull out many, many anomalies for you, so that by the time I was done, you would begin to see thing is rotten in Denmark, and you begin to see that these people that create the wars for us are not only profiting, but they're above it. Last night, I went through and established for the audience what started and how religious control came about. And I believe I need to go through this too. Because there's a real lack of understanding, even among the Christian people and the patriots, about how wide this conspiracy is. See, the problem is that if we don't understand how big the problem and how wide the problem is that we may run from one arm of the octopus to another arm of the octopus. We have to know our enemy. We have to know where the people that are trying to take away our freedoms are located. And probably familiar with Christ and how Christ was prophesied to set the captives free, And Christ came, one of the things that Christ came to do was to set mankind free of religious tyranny. And the people that crucified him understood that very well. How did religious tyranny come about? Well, last night I went in depth about Nimrod, and I think tonight I will skip over that, going into some of the details. But it's very interesting how religious thought developed, and one of the principal concepts that got things started occurred way back there in the Garden of Eden. It's where Satan told Eve that knowledge would save them. That's the concept, that knowledge will save you. And that's the basic Gnosticism. Well, what they discovered, and a lot of this was developed at the time of Nimrod, what they discovered is that knowledge is power, so that if I say knowledge, I create an instant power base. You want to come to me to get my hidden. Now, the key you here on this diagram out from the other side. And I was reading in an obscure Gnostic book, in an obscure paragraph, and it was the type of boring most people would not wade through. And all of a sudden, in this obscure paragraph, the light went on, and I realized that they had just told me the world. It was like the apple hitting Newton. I said, that's how they do it. They just told me. What they do is they say that they have hidden knowledge. Now, if I have hidden knowledge and you're coming to me, I can't give you my hidden knowledge, or I would have just given away my power base. So I have to give it away. So the second feature of this is that this hidden knowledge is given away incrementally. Now, if you join the Freemasons, they give their life in degrees. That's how they incrementally give it. You go up through the degrees, 1 through 3rd, and then you can go to other rites, go 360 degrees around the circle if you want. If you are a Jehovah's Witness, you are given this hidden knowledge incrementally by their watchtowers and awakes, which come in weeks. In fact, to quote the Watchtower Society, you must stay in touch with God's communication. So Watchtower, that they channel information from God and that they to you. In fact, there's a lot more involved in research the Watchtower. I found a lot of very strange things about many of these established religious organizations, and I might just use the Jehovah's Witnesses as an example. I found out that during the early part of their history, for many decades, their leadership believed that they were receiving messages from God, and that God lived in Alcyon in the Pleiades. Remember, we have people talking about aliens. Well, they believed that the Pleiadians were giving them messages, and their second president, Rutherford, said that angels that were coming from the Pleiades bringing these messages were fallen angels that were working out their salvation. Very interesting. Now, the third feature, there's 3 features to how they set up a Gnostic religion. The third feature is that you can't get the dedication that you can get to an initiate group. So they create one religion for the broad masses, and then they'll pull out an initiate group, which will be like a priesthood. So this will be like a laity, and this will be a clergy. And then they'll have a cover ruling body which pretends to rule, and then there'll be the actual string pullers. and those Illuminati. And like with the Jehovah's, I went back and identified some of the Illuminati figures that are secretly running the Watchtower Society. And in 1991, I came out with a big book, Be Wise as Serpents, where I went in and I went group by group, denomination by denomination, religious group by religious group, showed how they were created and how they are controlled by means. So all of these religious groups are being controlled from behind the scenes, so that if we take this pyramid structure, they love to build pyramids because intrinsically what's happening is the base is supporting the top. There's some intrinsic features to a pyramid. If you picture this pyramid being laid on its side as a piece of pie, you see how all these religions fit together. For instance, we have the Catholic Church here, the Mormon Church, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and other groups around here. And so it's a divide and conquer tactic. These are artificial partitions in here, and they'll keep, like the Jehovah's Witness, fighting against the Mormon. They never rebel against the sinner. It's the perfect control mechanism. If to rebel against the sinner, then they got the priesthood that's protecting the sinner, plus the fact that there's the cover ruling body, which has so that it's hard to identify who are the real strengths behind the scenes. This pattern has been repeated. This is the pattern that they use, and it's been repeated hundreds of times. And there's a lot more about this, but it's important to understand the concept of mystery religions, because Illuminati is the continuation of the ancient mystery religions. And the Illuminati have their own, which are identical to ancient mystery religions, but they all these other religious groups, and they really don't care what you do as long as they can control you. And using the Jehovah's Witnesses as an example again, very few Jehovah's are aware of all of the doctrinal flip their society has made. And when you examine that, you realize that the real crux of the issue is the Watchtower Society wants control over their life, that it's not a doctrinal thing. So here is some examples of this. What the about Satan is so true. The Word of God says that Satan masquerades as an angel of light. The Greek word there, masquerade, means to wear a mask. I want you to reflect for a moment on what an angel is like. When an angel would appear to someone in the time of, like, or in the Old Testament time, they would be brilliant white. They would be overpowering in their presence, that these men would want to fall down and worship them. Even if they were godly men, they would want to fall down and worship them, and then the angels would have to say, hey, don't worship me. This is how Satan comes. He wears a mask. One of the very difficult things I have, if I am going to really tell you about what's going on today and really sincerely communicate to you what's happening with the mind control, is to get across to you that nothing is as it seems, and that all of our ideas of judging people are obsolete and have been obsolete this entire century. We look on the outside, and what these people do is they create a mask for themselves. So I like to ask audiences, what do you think the particular occupation for Illuminati kingpins is? And I get a variety of answers, but the correct answer is Christian clergyman, because that's the best mask. You need to keep that in mind. What does the word arcane or esoteric mean? Those three words, they mean hidden. Okay? Keep that in mind. We've got the mask on. They put on the best front that they can. I'm sure that there's people that knowingly or unwittingly have masks on. Okay? It would be really difficult for me to believe that in an audience this size that there aren't some people that have an ulterior for being here. I've met a lot of people since I have started trying to expose the Illuminati. They brought a lot of people into my life that were wearing masks to try to destroy me. And the story behind the story is very interesting. I've had more than my share of adventures in the last 8 years, but the important thing for me is to get out the story. The story behind the story will never get out because it's so difficult to just get out the story. I don't even like to open up the topic of unless I have about a day to talk about it. I'm probably spending 30 minutes to an hour on the subject, and I can't do the subject justice. It's really actually, in many ways, opening that will be counterproductive. And I know I have to start somewhere. But I encourage you, I strongly encourage you to get our books. We have 3 books. Cisco co-authored 3 books on the mind control. I don't know how much longer we'll be out here being able to share with people. I don't know how much longer the books will be available. I know that the way that they were published, black leather covers, will perhaps not happen again because I'm having a lot of resistance in trying to get them published that way. So I encourage you to share while you can, and also to realize that for people like myself, I am full-time a warrior against the New World Order and the Illuminati, and thank you. And the way that Cisco and I can support our work requires people supporting us through buying our literature and also so forth like that. And as some of you know, of you out there in the audience, you also are working as hard as you can to slow down move that the internationalists are doing. There isn't a whole lot of money in fighting the system. Quite to the contrary, the roof comes down on your head in many ways. This is just how monotheistic religions are used as fronts for other groups, which are used as fronts for the Illuminati. It's fronts behind fronts. And that occurs also in the business world. Holding companies which have other companies which are fronts with. It's impossible to figure out who controls certain companies and who pulls the strings. Even some houses around here, as Cisco and I were driving, Cisco was in the Illuminati, and for a while she was stationed here in California, and as we were driving around earlier today, she was saying, see that house there? It belongs to the Rothschilds, but because the ownership's been hidden, it's been obscured. I think I will just skip through a stack of things that I was going to discuss and simply give you, in a nutshell, what I was going to, and that is, I was going to show the document, show you that the Illuminati is a continuation of the mystery religions, and that they're the hardcore mystery religions. The outer symbology of those mystery religions is Freemasonry. And Freemasonry and the Illuminati are like this. And so I have spent a lot of time exposing Freemasonry, and in 1993 I came out with a list of about 110 Vatican officials who were Freemasons. Here are their names and their secret Masonic membership numbers and association and so forth. This inside a Catholic church where you see the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. There isn't anything in our lives that hasn't been dirtied, okay? And yesterday when I said something like church, I had some people in the audience stand up and leave. I'm not trying to pick on any group. Let me just categorically say there isn't any group which hasn't been dirtied. Anything that's beautiful or clean in this country, these people have infiltrated and made dirty. This is in my Be Wise as Serpents book. I went denomination by denomination and listed high-ranking Freemasons who were in their clergy. This is just part of the Episcopal Church. Pictures of a few of our presidents who are Freemasons than these. Just giving you an idea that this fraternal organization has a large influence on him. Now, Illuminati, their ranks, they have an anarchy level and a hierarchy level. Again, remember I talked about the mask? Well, the mask is the anarchy level are a lot of witchcraft coven groups. And we sold out of my Ezekiel 6:3 book, which was on spiritual warfare yesterday. That book, I listed thousands of rituals in the United States, and I listed all the Illuminati rituals, and I also gave hundreds of different witchcraft covens. A lot of these witchcraft covens appear quite benign. They're, nature worshipers or whatever. Remember that we're looking, when you're looking at the occult, it's hidden knowledge. So you've got, this is your anarchy level. And when you are able to create a programmed multiple slave, you can have that particular person operate and function on many different levels. Cisco, for instance, reached up at the top of the Illuminati structure, and yet she also functioned down here at the anarchy level. So what I'm trying to get across is just one aspect of what I said before. Everything, how to understand elite, and it's taken me years to people refer to as a paradigm shift to really understand the consequences of what this mind control means for our society. Line is nothing is as it seems. This is one of the mother's castles. Actually, it's not a picture of the castle itself. It's the gate that leads to the castle. This is a very important, this is the Mother of Darkness's sort of like their headquarters. Very important. It's down the border of Belgium and France, near the little Belgium town of Muno. It's very close to some important Merovingian sites. I've happened to have read the trilogy of books, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, The Temple and the Lodge, and The Messianic Legacy by a trilogy of authors. Lincoln, Lay, and Pageant are aware of the importance of the Merovingian dynasty. Okay, well, they're one of the Illuminati. And It's not by accident that this mother of dark, which is associated with the Catholic, very close to these, about 5 miles from this Abbey. You go back in the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and you'll find out the significance of that. Trying to give some names and faces and places to take something nebulous and bring it down to earth for us. This is the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, Presidio. It's been used for Illuminati level rituals. The Presidio, which is next door to that Palace of Fine Arts, has a number of places that have been used for programming. For instance, that tree was used for mind control purposes. Fort Point. It's very interesting that the 6th Army, their logo is, if you'll look at it, it's a hexagram with an anarchy A in the center. Powerful satanic symbology there, and they have been headquartered at the Presidio. And Michael Aquino and a number of other members of the Church of officers within the 6th Army, which has an intelligence, so they have very high clearance. From working with the Illuminati, and I have helped bring out some people in the Illuminati and have spent a number of years with what could best be described as deprogramming or deliverance, rescuing these people. I have gotten their inside information from when they were in the Illuminati, and there's 13 bloodlines, sort of in mockery of the biblical bloodlines that God has, and the only one here that's not a top 13 that I threw in was Reynolds. In my book, The Top 13 Illuminati Bloodlines, I talk about the Krupps, and the Reynolds are also very powerful within the Illuminati. These are what you could call bloodlines or tribes. Now, when I've worked with members of the Illuminati, I have yet to come across anybody whose surname, their last name, actually matched the blood. You have to understand that these people are masters at deception. I had no comprehension of how deep and they have taken the science of deception. It's beyond your imagination as to how skilled these people have become in deception over many centuries. This has been going on centuries. That's why there's a lot of information out there among the patriots and so forth. Some of the information is just bogus. Some of the information circulated out there about current events, really disinformation. We have to really be discerning, and we just can't, just because somebody says that they're on our side and they're against the New World Order, we just can't automatically accept it. Now, these are telling us, for instance, the intelligence agencies, that they're lying and they're deceiving for our benefit. The CIA has a lot of people convinced that they need to use deception. That's that National Security Act behind which they hide. If you will study the consequences of lies and deception in a society, you'll be amazed at the detriment that they cause. A lie, first, is like a rabbit. One lie leads to another lie, which leads to another, and then to cover that, several more lies. So lies breed like rabbits. They don't stay single. The next thing that happens is with lies is understand that the foundation of society is communication and trust. If you're doing business with somebody, you have to trust. Human relationships and rest of these things that are foundations to a society. They're all built on trust. Lies to you, your mind will begin to doubt whether they're going to have your best interest in other ways. So your mind automatically starts suspecting other negative things about them. So by out all these lies within society, CIA and National Security Agency are really doing is spreading a cancer that's causing our society. Everybody becomes mistrustful of each other. Now, I'm going to put the Illuminati. I'm going to go through 13 families real quickly with pictures of members of within these bloodlines, but bear in mind that the people that are within the Illuminati have their lineages hidden. Masters, here's the Clive dynasty. Those of you who are familiar with the Rhodes Scholars, the Rhodes Scholars used the Clive dynasty. It was, the Astors were very involved in that, and remember that President Bill Clinton was given a Rhodes. So was the head of the Watchtower Society and one of their governing board members were invited to be Rhodes Scholars. This is the DuPonts, and the DuPont military-industrial establishment. Every time we have a war, they make incredible amounts. In some of our wars, they've almost had monopoly over gunpowder. They also have a lot of the patents on a lot of important chemicals. There's not a single day go by that you don't use DuPont products. Freeman family. This is a picture of one of the graduating classes of the Order of Skull and Bones, and there's a Freeman within this class. And I mentioned last night that George Bush was in Skull and Bones, and I upset some people. This is Gaylord Freeman, and he's the head of the Priory of Zion, with the Merovingian dynasty, and the Freeman Illuminati family. And yes, there is a Chinese family within the Illuminati, the Li family. They're very proud, long occult history. And the Kennedys. A little longer, okay. A little longer. Notice that JFK's there at the Great. One of the things I notice is a lot of these people seem to like to make this to the Great Pyramid. Charles Taze Russell, who started the Watchtower Society, made his pilgrimage, and on and on. Their sister married into British royalty, involved in this. Brian Kennedy, who was Brian Boru, an old king, his seed has gone into a lot of families, royal families in Europe. He was the first Kennedy Jr., who was a member of the Church of Satan. He was of the late Anton LaVey, and one of many programmers, mind control programmers. And James Mansfield, who sexually serviced JFK, was also one of the slaves that was handled by Anton LaVey. And you probably already are aware that Marilyn Monroe was a programmed multiple sexual slave. And here I believe is in her personality as she watches Okay, I'm going to quickly go on to the next family of that one. This man is Guy de Rothschild, one of the most powerful men in the world, a mind control programmer. His son David, this man connects in with the, connects in the Antichrist. They have Antichrist in waiting, and he's a combination of several lineages. This is one of their palaces. This is a later picture of Guy de Rothschild. Now, in the inauguration of Bill Clinton, I caught him doing this sign like this and with his left hand. And those of you who are familiar with it know that this is the sign of Satan, but that's just a front meaning. The important meaning of going like this is that it's a hand signal that hypnotically inducts mind-controlled slaves. So he was doing hand signals while he was giving his talk. Charles Taze Russell, Star Watchtower Society, is buried underneath a pyramid. Joseph Smith Jr., who started Mormonism, he was tied in with the Merovingian lineage and the tribe of Dan. These are some of his magical items, like his serpent cane and some of his other magical items that he had to practice magic. Okay. And his successor. Now remember I talked about anomalies in history. All of the leaders of the RLDS Church, that's Latter-day Saints, and the Latter-day Saints, which are headquartered in Salt Lake City, both groups, all their leaders, their prophets, have come from the same lineage. And here's Brigham Young with his Masonic pin. And I discovered a very important Scottish connection to the Illuminati. All your Scottish clans are represented within the Illuminati. A very strong connection there. And there's some important reasons why. It goes back to the tribe of Dan and Egypt and a lot of other things. But there's very strong Scottish. You've read books on conspiracy. I haven't seen anybody out there that's caught on to the Scottish connection. I've fingered a number of other groups, but there's a very important connection to all of this. The Illuminati rule things quietly from behind the scenes. They have occult area boards in each area. Occult area boards have representatives from organizations that meet in like committees, coordinate activities. An example of what an occult do is they might say, we need more people in this group and less in this cult, so they will set things up so that one cult diminishes and another cult increases. So they coordinate activities. And when they wanted to create federal regions for the United States, they just copied it from the Illuminati's occult area. There is a system to how they control the United States. This would, I could talk on this for quite a while. I will go right past it, just letting you know that there is a method to how they do things, how they control. And when they have an objective, they will break that objective down into different components, and then they will implement by giving different organizations that they can manipulate and control items to do to thing together. This is done in such a sophisticated. I talked about deception, that unless you know what's going on and you put a lot of pieces together, you don't sure. but they've done this for a lot of different objectives. And for instance, within New Age teaching groups and teaching institutions, they've used the spin principle, polycentric integrated network, so that you have what looks like a grassroots movement skillfully controlled from behind the scenes. This is one of the areas that mind-controlled slaves are used in extensively, running messages and setting up groups and on and on. Segmented polycentric network, and they control food and grains. Of course, you know the government has set up a weather modification board by a public law, and yet here they did this comic scene of having patriots go to Washington to be interviewed by Congress, and Congress is asking them questions about there's weather modification going on. And here the government itself has had a weather modification board carrying this out, implementing it for a long time. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who's Illuminati, in his book here, he talks about how viruses and bacteria and weather modification can be used as warfare. Well, believe the common people have warfare being carried out on us, and sure enough, they're using those. The original stockholders of Reserve, as most of you know, Federal Reserve is not part of it's a private fractional banking institution that we pay for the privilege of using their, and you look at the original stockholders, these guys are all Illuminati kingpins, you know, they're the families that I expose. The Illuminati, some of the families of the Illuminati are in P2 Freemasonry and the Mafia and the Triads and the Mishbuka. So there's an order, these organized membership of the Illuminati, and then of course this whole slimy mess coordinates their activities. All of these underworld people have a lot of different connections with each other. Just a real quick, how Christian religion is. Now we're going to get right into the. I've got 45 minutes left to open up a Pandora's box to you. If you're in Vietnam, and we looked at your time there as and if at a particular point in time you were out in the field and a rocket came, best friends to pets are lying all around, it's very possible that your mind, in order to protect itself, would build amnesia walls around that event. In fact, they have a real nice name for it, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Mind is incredible. As I've gone in and researched and studied and tried to fact all the ways that they carry out this mind control, this total mind individuals, I've come to appreciate. One is that the human mind is absolutely incredible in what it's able to do, and is very similar to a computer in that it can isolate, just like when you want to reboot your computer, you shut it off and you reboot it. The memory that you're using to reboot that computer with is memory that's been isolated, that you can't touch. The most important things in being able to make a functional computer was to be able to isolate memory like that. Well, the Illuminati bloodlines learned way back in ancient times in the mystery religions, that they could do the exact same thing, that they could isolate memory within the human mind. And they do it just as that example with the soldier. They use trauma, but they like to use the trauma before a child's mind has fully developed. When you're born, the different aspects of your mind are beginning to learn themselves together. Your ego is beginning to develop. So before the mind has solidified a lot of these things, the Illuminati begin the trauma process. The trauma process begins generally about the age of 18 months. And they traumatize the child as severely as they can. And the programmers try to outdo themselves in sadism. Well, bear in mind that the worse the trauma, the better the amnesia walls. They will go in and they will split the child's mind into thousands of pieces. Now, this is just as if I was to take a mirror and throw it against the ground and shatter it into 1,000. I'd have a mess, wouldn't I? That's what they do with these people's minds. They make it into a mess. Marilyn Monroe could barely function. You know, it was very difficult for her to, when they were making movies with her, them to get her to even function. And she was seeing her programmer every day. Yeah, so they make a terrible mess of these people's minds, but they so their mind by the snot out of them, then they and build something of use out of it. So they know how to identify each of those fragments of the mind. It's like a floppy disk that doesn't have anything written on it, and they will go in and they will program each one of those little parts of the mind, and they can make that part into whatever they want it to be. Now perhaps they want to make that part of the mind into another personality. So you'll see the creation of multiple personality disorder. Cisco, who I brought out of the Illuminati, had 30,000 alter personalities. Those were standard personalities within her mind. Imagine the amount of trauma that it takes to split the mind that many times. That lady has undergone. As we were driving today, drove by some of the places where she had been used. She pulled up memories, and she has a real difficult time crying, but she started remembering a number of the traumas, and it was very hard for her. Like I say, the better the trauma, or not the better, the more severe the trauma, the better the amnesia walls. So when I say trauma, these traumas are inconceivable. They're so horrendous that they are bad enough that the mind splits and blocks them out. Bad they are. And this is what's happening all across our country. I figured up from 8 different ways how many people had been subjected to this mind control. And I came up, surprisingly, using 8 different methods or sources with the figure 2 million. But Cisco tells me, conservative, having been in the Illuminati, she believes that there are 10 million Americans who have been programmed with this base total mind control. Now, what is the purpose behind this? It's to control society at all levels, okay? There are program multiples in the gutter, and there are program multiples in our governor's mansions. And there are program multiples when you go to see the doctor. They're assaulted throughout society. That way, with the structure that they have built in over the centuries, we have a very structured society. If you will think about how the American Indians lived and contrast the way the American Indians lived with the white men that came from Europe, you'll begin to get a picture of how structured our society is. That structuring has come down to us from ancient Babylon. And one of the things that I like to do when I have a couple hours is to go in and show people historically how this foundation of structuring has been passed on down through the centuries. One of the items, and I can't go through, there's probably 50 different items that would be important to talk to you about in the structuring process of society, but just one of them is interest taking. Now, a lot of Christians pride themselves following the Bible, but if you, in 1979, I came out with a book exposing that is unbiblical, that both the Old Testament and the New Testament forbid interest taking. Scripture is based on interest taking. That goes way back to bankers in ancient Mesopotamia, in ancient Babylon. And of course the scriptures, the Word of God, to our present day system as Babylon the Great. It's because very few people have taken the time to ask themselves the question, why are we doing what we're doing? Where did this come from? We're a very structured society. In creating a slave, one of the key words in understanding how their mind works is structure. Everything becomes. Now, when the child is born, his mind has different aspects that are working and beginning to work as a team. The different aspects of the brain and the mind are independent, but they're beginning to learn how to work together. But this is, in a sense, stopped and not allowed to develop naturally, and the development is interrupted so that the Illuminati can divide all of these different functions from each other and control each one of them. When I say that this mind control is total mind control, absolutely everything of a person. Just weeks ago, I had a doctor from call, and here we go. He called, and he had been subjected to mind control. And he had been looking for Cisco and I for 6 months and finally found us, sold his condo in New York for treatment for his mind control. And I thought his letter that he wrote when he left last Sunday was very nice, and would like to read it. He says, "My name is Steve Kurzweil. I'm a medical doctor who was exposed to telepathic thought intrusion." That's how he perceived it. From September 1997 through February 23rd, 19. I was left dysfunctional until I consulted Cisco Wheeler, co-authors of 3 pioneering works on mind. Their skill in mind decontrol techniques got me back on my feet. Their compassion and dedication were remarkable. With the help of the Holy Spirit, I was able to regain control of my. Cisco and Fritz are to be commended for their faith and inspiration by God in the service of their fellow man. So they have split the mind into pieces. As the programmer begins to work, he may be constructing charts like this as he's pulling together different parts of the mind in particular patterns, building computers into the mind, building systems of alter personalities. This is a sample of a chart that, showing they might be developing looks like this. And this will be sheets like this will be put in gray or black binder or put on a laptop computer, and this gives the access codes for different alter personalities within the person. And each of these boxes represent personality. That personality may be programmed to be an assassin, may be programmed to be a sexual slave, may be programmed to do a particular Illuminati ritual. So you can see that when they create a mind-controlled slave, they will have many, many functions and many, many alters. One of the big that they have managed to perpetrate on the therapeutic community is that these program multiples, or these multiple personalities, have like maybe 5 or 6. That's only the front, that's only the mask. And of course, therapists are out there working, they spend maybe 20 years at 5 or 6 front alters, and they never realize that there's thousands of other disassociated. It's a very skillfully. In fact, a lot of you probably feel like, go to work, let's identify these mind-controlled slaves and let's deprogram them. It's not that simple. They have had many of the greatest minds of this century on how to develop this mind control. Mind control incorporates every method of controlling a person that's ever been discovered. You know, just as an apple pie is not an apple, likewise, this mind control is just not, it's just not hypnosis. And television is what they can do with television is minor compared to this. This is at least 1,000 times more intense than anything that could be done with television. It totally controls a person, and it uses an incredible number of different overlapping. There are 12 sciences. When I started to describe, I wanted to write to the American people on, I had about 150 files, things that were being done in the mind control. There's no way that I can talk about 100 methodologies like hypnosis and this and that. And so I began thinking, just what are we looking at here? And I realized that all methodologies broke down to 12 sciences. And everything that I have discovered before and since that I came up with those 12 sciences has always fit within those 12 sciences. So you got 12 sciences with many, many different methodologies within each of those sciences that are interwoven together. That is why when you somebody who is like CIA and they tell you, well, we investigated that method of controlling people, that's why you explain to you, you can know that it's a lie. If you take this methodology, which only works in 50% of the cases, and this, which works in 70%, and this, which works in 50%, if you take all these many methodologies and combine them into a sophisticated group package, what you do is you end up locking the person in. And the victims of this mind control do not are under mind control. It's totally undetectable, and it's totally undetectable even to the victim. That is the danger of the mind control, is that it's so hidden and it's so deceptive. And if you took a mind-controlled slave who was being used by and you interrogated them, they would pass interrogation. They would pass polygraph tests. The mind control is extremely sophisticated, and to try to break it down is not easy. There's a lot of people out there with pat answers. Understand, they haven't invested billions of dollars in how to create mind-controlled slaves to have somebody simply unravel it very easily. They have built backup programs, come to understand how much work they do. Overkill. Just seeing how hard that they make it impossible to break down the mind control will convince you these people are absolutely insane. It's backup controls after backup. I have people that I know under mind control that are program multiples, and because of and other reasons, I have not even discussed the issue with them. The thing of it is that someone who's under mind control, if their mind seriously entertains the truth of their situation, they are programmed to commit suicide. So that we're not something that's easy to play with. It's not something we're dealing. Not only is this, are we dealing hardball with the Illuminati, but with their mind control, we're dealing with something that's very touchy and sophisticated. It's like you've heard of computer hackers. They go in and they type in and they try to find the code to break into a computer. Well, because the human mind and body is so incredible, a mind-controlled slave, imagine these mind-controlled slaves are the sophistication of the such that if you go into the room where the computer is located and you're not an authorized user, the computer can self-explode. So we're dealing with some very complex issues here. As they start the process, they like to use structures that make the mind of the victim feel helpless. These are type structures that never have an ending. It's sort of like if you're a computer programmer, you may be familiar with what are called do loops. They're loops in the computer programming that cycling. The programming is set in so that they cycle, and it seems like there's no beginning and no end. Structures like this leave the victim hopeless. As the programmers begin working with the young child, they will reduce the child to where the child is pliable. This is a photo of a young boy who has reached the compliant state that the programmers are looking for, and you'll see that the eyes are glossy, the hands are classified, and he's ready to submit to what they call puppet programming. They have an enormous number of techniques that they have refined over the years. Dehumanization is one of them. The front of the mind, which is the personality that will hold the body day in and day out, will realize. But the deeper parts of the mind, the deeper disassociated parts, the other alter personalities will be dehumanized, and one of the standard tricks that they use is to remove their hearts and replace their hearts with a heart of stone. Ministers out there that think that they're going to go in and they're going to talk to somebody and say, give your heart. And these parts don't even have a heart. They don't believe that they have a heart. They don't have a heart to give to Jesus. See, I'm beginning to give you just a little inkling, just cracking the door a little bit to show you how complex and how many the programmers have put in to take down their programming and bring these people to health. In fact, to tell you a little anecdote myself on this particular issue, one of Cisco's altars had this type of programming. And I thought, we'll let the 3D world of reality expose this lie. I got one of these, you put the cuff around the arm and it gives you your pulse. And I'll put this band around her arm and I'll turn this on and I'll get a pulse and a heartbeat and I'll prove to her, excuse me, that I indeed have a heart. Well, I did this and the machine didn't read anything. This particular part had been programmed to trance out whenever this would be done. So she tranced, the machine didn't get a reading. So she turned to me and she said, see, I told you I don't have a heart. There's the proof. As easy as you think to break down the programming. And I said, well, let's try it again. I think that you're trancing out, try to go deep into trance. The second time, she go into trance and we got a very faint reading. Once she realized what was happening, the third time that we did it, we actually got a fairly good reading. But it's easy as you think to break down the programming lies. There's one lie over another. It's quite a layer, very similar to what's being done. In fact, I've found a lot of parallels. Programming in this trauma-based total mind control is really awesome of what's done to the world in general as the macrocosm. Satan uses people to program us a lie. And I'm telling you this to alert you in your own personal life to the pitfalls that you may encounter. Trauma in your life, I want you to next time ask yourself, what is the lie that's going to be attached to this trauma? Okay? It's like, first, a trauma is applied. Second, a lie is offered which, when accepted, alleviates or improves the pain of the trauma. And third, systems of the lies are built to trap the minds of the lies we believe in. Then I give an example here that you can read while I another example. We're in India in 400 BC and we're traumatized. Then the lie that is demonically introduced to us, because this is all demonology, the lie that is presented to us is that if we worship this lingam or we do this particular ritual or something, it's going to take care of, it's going to lead to trauma. So we do that. Then that becomes a cultural thing where society is locked into doing that ritual, and the lie then is codified. So then your whole culture is locked into the lie. When traumatized in various ways, the mind will naturally protect itself. And the programmers are very well aware of what the effects of certain are. And they take advantage of the mind's natural ability to understand that. They understand how the mind works, how the body works, and a lot of the information is been kept from the public. What we are allowed to understand about how the mind functions is just the crumbs of what they understand. I have been absolutely amazed at their level of understanding of how the mind works. And they have kept a lot of this from us so that they're in a better position to manipulate us, and not only us, but also their mind control victim. So if a little child experiences betrayal from their parents, the conscious mind going to protect itself. It's going to go into denial, and it's going to learn, A, not to trust anyone, including itself, and B, since trust is the basis of communication, they also learn not to be in touch with the outside world. Again, isolation from the outside world is a very someone. I might interject here. First, I'll give a little bit of a history of how they took what they was doing within their bloodlines in the mystery religions, and they brought scientific investigation to bear on the whole mind control they could make it far more fine-tuned and far more. The reason why the concentration camps and the concentration camp experiments were that they were doing it for purposes of mind control. Some of you are probably the man Joseph Mengele, for instance, between the year of 1943 and 1944, experimented on 3,000 twins. What's the advantage of having twins to experiment? Well, you have a control group. You know, if you've ever done science experiments, you know the value of having two. You can realize the value of having twins which have identical material. These sadistic that were perpetrated on people were done for purposes of trauma-based mind control. It's a Grand Master in the Illuminati. In January 1945, when it was clear that Germany was going to fall, or I should say the Illuminati, transferred Joseph Mengele from Nazi Germany and brought him over here to our country to apply what he had learned in the concentration camps in terms of torturing people. Joseph Mengele of been Cisco Wheeler's instructor, and Cisco also got to work with Joseph Mengele as a programmer after her father and Joseph Mengele perpetrated mind control on her. That has been very, because in working with like Cisco, who was a programmer, who actually understands the programming that no, I haven't seen anybody else even come close to, it's really helped my learning curve. So much of this is secret. There's another trauma, role confusion, a good and bad to a child. How's the subconscious mind going to protect itself? A sense of the world, I must be bad, it was my fault. I'll preserve self-respect. Since I didn't resist, I am at fault. An image of the abuser, I can continue to love him because I was at fault. Happiness, what a thrill to be abused. I must have wanted this for being. To learn to have a comfort zone of self-blame, to become a caretaker, which sets the victim up for more self-blame when things go wrong, and see, fantasize to stop the pain. And with each traumas, then there will be visible that the person shows. For instance, they'll sabotage self-achievement and acts of, they'll isolate themselves. Now, I told you that the mind control is essentially undetectable. But once you start understanding the small clues, here's some small visible clues. You put these small visible clues together with or of other small visible clues. Once you get to the level of understanding like we can spot some people who are program multiples very quickly. The doctor who came to us 2 weeks ago, who I read, had no idea that he was a program multiple, read any of our literature. He didn't know anything about. All he had done was he had been told that we could help him, and he was at the end of his rope after looking for hope in all the wrong places. The parts are dehumanized. During her, the period of her life, her programming, but was going through therapy, as part of her therapy did artwork as to how she was seeing things. This is how some of her alters perceived how they looked. They saw themselves as cats. So when you start becoming aware of their little code words and the way the programming, you'll start seeing some of these, even right on television. I mean, it'll be right what they're doing, and it'll just really blow you away that a lot of this is being done right in front of people's faces, and they don't know what to look for, so it goes right by them. Walt Disney movies have been used extensively for programming. A lot of them were created for programming purposes. Here's an example of how a one-frame Walt Disney movie, let's say you're going to program an altar to believe that it's a doorknob. Well, then it very well might have this scene along with a lot of other programming techniques along with it, such as drugs, hypnosis, deceit, and a lot of other, like I say, it's a group. By the time that part of the mind has been programmed and gone through behavior modification, it has come to the point where it believes that it's a doorknob. This is what the programming looked like. You got programming layered in, layered upon layer of programming. That's what it looks like in the mind as the mind starts unraveling. This is Cisco's artwork, and here's some more. This again shows some more of the layering of the programming. And we put together some of her collages in out of print. And, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Some have purchased that book over the years and have just been amazed at how helpful it was to them, because, like I say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and there's so much in her artwork shows the hidden aspects of how their programming is done. The ramifications of this mind control are absolutely mind-boggling. Say, nothing is as it's, and I'll leave you one disconcerting thought, is that as I've been out here in the last 8 years trying to expose the Illuminati, I have learned that the majority of people that are out here also doing, at least getting up and speaking before crowds that are pretending to exposing the New World Order, are actually the infiltration within the churches is mind-boggling. The infiltration within the Patriot movement is mind-boggling. The infiltration within the militias is mind-boggling. And, you know, if we were going to play a basketball game, would you go in and play a basketball game with your ears shut, your ears and your eyes closed, and not being able to see your opponent? And yet those of us that are trying to save this country and save society and save civilization, the human race, a lot of us have gone in without knowing the type of things that I've been doing. And we've been trying to fight blindfolded, and we keep getting blindsided. This is one of the reasons why we keep getting blindsided, is because there's a lot of people out there that are double agents. It's controlled opposition. If they can control their own opposition, then they know how hard the punch is going to come. That's why it's quite a privilege for me to be here, because it's been difficult to... I began exposing the mind control in 19... And how many Americans are aware of it? Not very many. So in 7 years, I've made only in informing the American people. But the flip side of this is that there's a lot of hope. If you strike a match in a dark room, that looks like a whole big room, doesn't it? It's amazing how the truth dispels lies. And one of the bases of the programming is fear. They love to build fear into people. And there's a reason why, and I don't have time to go into all of the ramifications, all the consequences of us being fearful. But fear is important for them to control us. For instance, on the issue of national security, we're afraid that the nation is going to be conquered by the communists, so therefore we're willing to give away all of our freedoms for them to save us. They create the problem and then create the solution and move us in the direction that they want us to. So it's very important that we learn how they're using fear. And again, like I say, I don't have time to go into that, but I better get on. I'm cutting short a lot of important things that I would like to communicate to you, and that's sad, but that's the time limitations that I have. I want to tell you real quickly, those of you in the back who have gone to the back have noticed this micro water videotape. There's a whole number of things that we can do to step out of the corner that they have painted us into. Fear, I like to describe fear as false expectations about reality. Believe that we have to go to them for energy. They have made us believe that we have to go to health care. They have suppressed a lot of information. There's a lot of information that I've learned over the years. Virtually turn this planet into a... Information is there. The ability to turn this planet into there. The ability to give us long, prosperous, happy... They don't want this. I have these videos back there. This is very important. They're already using this in Japan, and you may wonder, well, why, if they've used it in Japan for 10 years, why hasn't it gotten in here? And it's because a lot of this information is suppressed. I have order blanks. I have other information stuff on it. It saddens me that I can't tell you more about it. I can at least just touch on it. Also, there's been a lot of research going on perpetual motion, cold fusion, and other energy sources. So that those of us that are looking, I'm just making you aware that there are a lot of powerful answers out there that we can learn, that show you that they don't have the hold over us that they like to think. Once you expose what's really going on, to some degree, they're a paper dragon. They're very fierce. They appear very fierce, and they are very fierce. These are very powerful people, and they're very ugly people in terms of how their hearts are hardened. And yeah, I want you to that there are answers, and the good Lord in the Word of God has shown us that He allowed evil to come in at a particular point in time in history, going to bring an end to evil at a particular point in history. And the life of Christ, who was a good man, who was tortured and went before a rigged court like so many of the rest of us have done, that even though they did all of these ugly things to him, that his life, that God can take anything evil and turn it towards good. So 2 points in history where evil is allowed, it's still not out of control. I don't want you walking away from here in fear. But just one of the ramifications of the mind control. I got this out of the news. You'll see here that the former Soviet Union has the second largest number of immigrants coming to the United States, and then Red China third, and then if they had included on this chart, it would have been right up there to the top two. Incredible number of people coming in from these communist or former communist countries. Red China is still communist. These are countries that do programming. How many Spetsnaz agents do among us? Our own leaders are protecting us. And if they wanted to, they could even and allow this the evil that they have allowed into our country to wreck us without even using their American mind-controlled slaves. Oh, Vietnam's right up there too. And there's so much that this mind, it touches every aspect of our lives. I might just, I haven't given this detail out before, but those POWs that were left in Vietnam, that came back, that were left in North Vietnam, just be aware that the communists are very sophisticated in mind control and in putting in subconscious mind control programs. So they had an ulterior reason for letting some of these POWs back into the United States. And don't count protecting our POWs. You know how the government's going to protect those people that trust it. This is the last thing I'm going to show tonight before I open it up for questions. The type of things that I could discuss are so mind-boggling. When you establish one piece of the puzzle and you go on to the next piece of the puzzle, and then you establish a piece of the puzzle, we have people that are walking around in eyes. You look at the eyes in these photographs, you'll see that they are reptilian, and what we have at stake, one of the reasons why I'm determined to stand up against what these people are doing is the very existence of the human race as we know it is hanging in the balance. There is nothing that's sacred to these people, and including the human race. And that's one reason we can know, excuse me, that above the Illuminati are intelligences that are not, and they're not interested in the human race. They're interested in robbing and destroying and enslaving the human race. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
That was certainly a fascinating presentation. You know, we have had some of these personalities, controlled personalities here at the forum. We had Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. Do you happen to know them?
The question was, do I know Kathy and Mark? Yes, I've known them for a number of years. And we've had the opportunity to meet each other several times and discuss things back and forth.
In support of what Fritz was saying, on May 14th we're going to have a program here which will be about weather modification. We had a woman, Paula Randall Smith, who sold her house to make this incredible production. And they literally go to the site and visit the site in Alaska, where they have this. And she interviews people that have worked there, and people from the government, and people that are very knowledgeable, have done research on it. So, like I said, saying, you might want to tune into the May 14th program. Now we're going to start with questioning. Go ahead.
Any questions, just come over here and line up.
Yeah, Fritz. I just recently got a book upon through ads and through backgrounds with. They embed messages such as, like, you know, you would put pornographic messages such as sex and et cetera, et cetera. But the television has to actually mind control tool. For example, the Super Bowl Sunday, all the commercials, they have to have subliminal messages in that, basically trying to control us. And what do you think?
There's a lot of concern about subliminals. That concern is really, if the proper balanced understanding of what's going on and what subliminals can do, subliminals is not that great of a threat, and is very minor in comparison to this total undetectable trauma-based mind control. But I would say this, that to communicate with the conscious mind without the conscious mind realizing it. And there are a lot of things that are done over television that hit the subconscious mind. And there are a lot of signals and so forth that are put over the television that are directed towards these mind-controlled slaves out there. And in fact, I've watched in some programs where they have triggers or codes that are meant for a broad spectrum of slaves. For instance, Princess Diana's death was one of those events where they were able to communicate to a vast number of slaves. And this relates to the end times plans that they have. They have plans that have been being that are very intricate, that require a lot of different people and components to bring about.
So what you're saying, basically, that's relatively lightweight, the ads? And
Yes.
Once again, in support of what Fritz is saying, we're going to have David Icke here May 7th about the, quote, death of Princess Diana, the murder of Princess Diana, so he calls it. So we have to stay.
Currently in Paris, Commission for Economic Cooperation and Development, are trade representatives of 29 nations working on the final draft of the multilateral agreement. It's scheduled to be voted upon by the U.S. Senate next year in May. And how will the plans of the Illuminati if our senators vote it into power?
Well, it's definitely part of their plan, and one of the key things about the way things are taking place is that they're all to occur now. People that have sat in on Illuminati meetings as to when they gave, they told their members as to what was going to happen. They repeatedly, the key word was natural. So it's like we look at GATT, things that you're talking about, and it looks like the world, the nations of the world are getting together and doing this, but in actuality, it's all, they're following a script.
Hi, Fritz. Doug Millar. Good to see you again, buddy.
Hi, Doug.
3 years ago, remember when I was referred to you and you spoke in the San Francisco Bay Area on Memorial Day weekend? And
I remember
we talked about, you mentioned tonight about the fact that not everybody that is going around exposing mind control is on our side.
Yes.
And along that line, remember 3 years ago we talked about Mark Phillips and Kathy O'Brien, and I bit my tongue at that time because for 5 years this month I've been holding back and releasing information about the fact he uses her for mind control and bait to get other monarch victims to surf. I went public with that in Atlanta with Dave Icke there, Ted Gunderson, Bryce Taylor, a bunch of people last October 2nd at a 3-day national conference. But, I know that a lot of people, Mark Phillips doing, because, you know, he's monarch and CIA mind control and things like that. But have you ever gone across anything to indicate that he is using her as a bait? Because you see, he's discredited every single victim. He's deprogrammed except for her in the last.
Well, I'm very familiar with, I'm familiar with some of the ins and outs of what's been going on with Mark Phillips and people that he's come in contact with and so forth. And one of the things that I choose to do is that, and let me explain my reason behind this. I go very easy on a lot of people that I could stand up and rake over the coals or criticize. And I'm primarily concerned throwing a monkey wrench in what's going on and really fighting the battles that. And we get bogged down in a lot of infighting. I could stand up here and I could list of double agents, you know, here and there, people that have been speakers here, but I would consider that counterproductive, because you understand how a double agent is created. Let me explain this. One of the double agents in World War II, the highest decoration that could be given by Germany, and he was also given the highest possible by England. Both sides were very, very. We are getting more positive information and from these double agents than most people. Most people are couch potatoes sitting on the on their chair watching professional wrestling. And if I had to size, it would be the couch potatoes. It wouldn't be agent. In order to create a double agent, they provide chicken. Okay, chicken feed is a CIA term for meaning they give good information, but it's not information of great consequence. If you're wanting to identify double agents, one of the ways that you could do that is analyze, what is this person really saying? Is they saying something? But I have backed off from trying to pull the tares from the wheat, so to speak. The scriptures know that Jesus said, be very careful from the wheat, because you may get some of the wheat.
Due to the number of persons here lined up, we're going to try to expedite these questions. Make them short, simple. You get one question, and we'll ask you to hold your comments down on the questions to the parameters. So we'll try to get through. It is 10:14. 16.
A few of us here know you as Victor Earl Schoof. Why the alias Springmeier?
In 1983, I legally changed my name for personal reasons, and you'll find that I legally changed it. And one of the attacks that they have tried to make against is they've come up with this. They've tried to discredit the message that I have by trying to discredit me, and they've said that I was CIA and that I was a Satanist, a whole bunch of bogus stuff like this. And they have tried to take this little kernel of truth, which is that I legally changed, and there were some reasons why I legally changed my name. And they've tried to, they've taken this little thing, and it's been incredible how I've watched the lies develop from that. If you visit with me, I have driver's license, will, tax statements, passport, so forth in my new name. So so I don't tell people my previous name because.
Well, you have a common law right to change your name anytime you want, so as far as I'm concerned, I just wanted to...
Okay.
Do you know about J.R. Bob Dobbs? Do you know about J.R.?
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with them, but yeah, I've heard about them.
A lot of are caught up in the Promise Keepers movement. What is the truth about that? And also, we're hearing a lot of stories about death camps and foreign troops on our soil. People are really concerned about that. What is the truth about that as you see it, as you understand it?
That was what was the first question again?
About Promise Keepers.
Oh, Promise Keepers. Okay. What the Illuminati is they look for banner issues that Christians cannot, will never oppose. For instance, a move of the Holy Evangelism 2000. Men keeping their promises. These are banner issues, and behind that banner issue, they can do anything they want because you can't criticize it because it's a move of the Holy Spirit, or they're going to evangelize the world. But if you really go in and look at these banners, at what's actually going on behind them, there's a lot of dirty activity. So anyway, these banner campaigns, they have a good front, but they're used for hidden agendas. So that's, you know, after Promise Keepers, there will be other, probably be other banner issues that they will create.
And are there
Yes.
concentration camps in America?
The question was, are there concentration camps? In 1991, when I came out with my Be Wise as Serpents book, I used some of my own findings as well as William Pabst, many years ago, discovered Operation Garden Plot, which I got, I entire military document out all of the troops that are to implement this and what they're to do and everything. This concentration camps has been something that was conceived many years. It's been in the planning and implementation stage for many years. And yes, there are definitely camps that are planned. And back in 1995, that in Portland, we one of our companies, Gunderson, was one of 11 large, started building rail cars to haul the concentration camps. Yes.
I like what you say about...
Can you hold your question for just 1 minute, please? It's running a little bit late, and I just want you to know, because there are some people getting up to leave because of work considerations tomorrow morning, that we have audio and video tapes available of this program. The audio tapes will be 2 of them for $3. That's tonight. And we have a limited number of videotapes available tonight, but he will definitely have more next week. I just wanted you to know for the benefit of those having to leave now. Thank you.
I like how the government creates the problems to solve problems. I was just wondering, you said that how many people actually are coming to this country? How many of these handlers do the Illuminati have? And how many that are people that are really hardcore brainwashed? Do you have any kind of statistics on that, or that are in society?
Well, statistics on how many people were immigrating from these different countries. I don't know, figure like how many Russian programmers have come here. I could say this, however many that they wanted to. There's no barrier for these people to move across the countries.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carlos. I realize that in the United States, a big destruction of the human race by intermarriages. Is there any significance of purity of the race?
I'm sorry. Pick up the question. Could that be?
I think he's talking about marriages. Any significance of interracial marriages to the
There's a big significance of interracial marriages, and I know that this will the big slides that people have. But you have to understand how mind control works. Mind control operates off of inheritance and who they are and their identity and their heritage from them. And so if somebody doesn't know where they've come from, they don't know where they are. And if they don't know where they are, they don't know where they're going. So it's been very important to steal our heritage from us. And one of the ways of confusing this is bringing in lots of different nationalities, mixing them up, interracial marriages, so that people do not have a sense of identity. And that's very important. I believe that if you look in the Revelations, you will see that in heaven all the national groups are represented as national groups. You can still identify national groups. God is not an internationalist. He created the different nations as barriers to evil becoming as powerful as it's becoming. These are natural barriers that were put in place so that that evil would be inhibited, and those are being removed.
Yes, a question about the motion picture media. My grandfather worked with Cecil B. He was called Mr. Motion Picture, the inventor of the motion picture industry, back in 1913. He was a man. He believed in God, very much in Jesus. The question I have is, ever since DeMille died, well, let's put it a few years before DeMille died, my family was confronted being in fashion designing and personal tailoring for DeMille. My family was on a spot. They, or whatever you want to call them, the evilness of the world, wanted DeMille back down so they could have equal time in basically Mexico up to the United States in the teal up to here and show it over the screen. The question is, DeMille told him where to, basically, he wouldn't do it. DeMille said, if you can, basically you can beat me, you can take over the media. And of course, nobody could beat DeMille. He had all the records. He invented this industry. So, since DeMille died in '59, I was up there with my family. I've seen the time step by step, minute by minute, day by day, to year by year, to day. And I do see it coming over Mexico. Is this Illuminati mind control? I'm sure that you were going to say, of custom. Is that?
Yes, it relates to mind control. Understand this, the dignity of a person and his self-value and his self-esteem is very important. We are free moral agents. You are free moral agents. But you have a low self-image, you're much easier to control. And by taking us down to the level of animals, by reducing our moral, there's a whole plethora of different things that relates to in terms of, it's very important that they tear down the dignity of the American person.
This is our last question.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your courage to stand up and expose this.
Thank you.
My question is, have you ever heard of a man by the name of John David Oates? He's an Australian. He's taken people's speeches, the presidents and other people in our government, recorded them. Then he has played the tape backwards, and you'll get a totally different meaning on the tape. And what they're really thinking and saying, and it's quite startling. And I'm wondering if there's any connection with this and mind control, or what you know about it.
It is incredible. Remember I told you that as I got to understand how the mind works, that I found out that it's absolutely mind-boggling how the function. This is reverse speech, and this is going around and giving classes days, so that they can understand. It's not an easy thing. The mind works in metaphors. The subconscious mind works in metaphors. That's why we're dealing in therapy with people. They have what's for the third ear, where you tell stories, and the mind will connect pictures. So a lot of things I could say in regards to that, but it's nice that somebody's come along and identified this particular thing. I happen to be a certified graphoanalyst, which is analyst, and when you write, when you do hand, your subconscious mind is having to make many decisions very rapidly, and so as a handwriting analyst, I work in reverse. Why did the mind make that decision? You can incredible amount of things about a person from their handwriting. So a lot of ways to track what the subconscious mind is thinking. Yes?
Yeah, one last question. Where do they get these children, these 18-month brainwash, and how long do they have them to do it, and whose kids are they?
Okay. Common question, especially by people that are skeptics, get the bodies. Actually, when you know the answer, the numbers to obtain are very easy. Incredible network out there that's operating, and in the Volume 2 book, which unfortunately we sold out yesterday, we sold out. In the Volume 2 book, I go into a number of places where they go for sources for these children. Reason why I can't answer your question, is because there's a lot of different sources. Coming down here to California, you can't miss these rest stops at all of these missing children's photos hanging up. A lot of children that's being taken. Generally are used during the programming. There's a lot of children that have to because they're expended to the children that are being programmed. There are a lot of parents that are pressured and manipulated or mind controlled into turning their children over. The Illuminati carry out this mind control on their own, doing it for generations. And so what we have is we have robots programming robots. The world is entirely out of the hands of sane people. Well, thank you for coming.
How about for a very fine presentation. Thank you, Fritz.